Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, that was a different kind of hello.
I fancied a change.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good evening.
Good day.
Good night.
Goodness.
Loch Ness.
Oh, joy.
Welcome to the Benji and Nick Show. This is what we do. We talk about cult TV. I'm making it sound sinister.
This is what we do. We condemn those to death who have wronged us in the past. I mean,
Yes.
We talk about cult television and just sort of riff it on from there, really.
Yes, I mean, we describe the show, which we've done now, and we will have spontaneously selected an old TV programme to talk about, which Benji and I will have watched by me saying Benji and I. You now know I'm Nick, he's Benji.
That's right.
And Columbo, Murder by the Book, which was the first proper episode of Columbo. There were 2 pilot episodes. Actually, I don't know when it was made, Murder by the
I'm
Book.
going to goggle it up.
Goggle it. We refuse to say the other word.
No, we
with
don't.
two
We don't
O's
give
in.
them the time of day.
And before we do that, we also tell you what we've been watching this week, and we read out your emails. And this week we're also reading out some Facebook comments that were sent to the Nicholas Briggs official Facebook page. There's also the Benji and Nick Show Facebook page that you might like to go and have a look at. What's the result of the goggling?
The result is that Murder by the Book was released in 1971.
Thus proving the truth of the assertion by, I think, the creator of the British series Public Eye, that the shabby raincoat thing was stolen by Columbo from Frank Marker in Public Eye. Well, of course, they never watched it. Or did they? Who knows?
Well, who knows? You know, I'm
Public
quite
Eye
shocked
started in
here
the
to see
60s.
that Columbo was still being made by 2003.
Yes, when he was unfeasibly old and beyond retirement age, yes.
Crazy. Why bother? Why bother?
My other fascinating facts about Peter Falk, who played the part, I remember hearing one of the last interviews he did before he sadly died. It was on BBC Radio 4, and they were talking to him down the line from America, and he was obviously sitting on a very noisy leather chair. So the whole time throughout the interview, which is a very interesting interview he was giving about everything, including Columbo, there's also
God.
noises. And at the end of the interview, the journalist actually said, and we would explain that Peter Falk was sitting on a rather noisy chair there. Apologies for that extraneous noise here on the BBC.
Oh, perfect. Classic Beebs. Classic
Yes.
BBC, isn't it? If ever there was a thing.
Okay, so the Columbo discussion is coming up. What have you been watching this week, generally, Benji?
I have been absolutely devouring a program called The Good Place, which I'm just so into. It's absolutely
Netflix, isn't it?
brilliant. Yeah, I don't normally go for. I'm not big on these kind of modern day comedy things, and
No.
I'm much more of a Brit comedy than an American comedy person. However, there's something just about this. It's just so compelling, and it's so there's such a wonderful concept. The concept being that. That a bit like heaven and hell, there is a good place and there is a bad place, and the character Eleanor wakes up in the good place. However, there's been a bit of a mess up, and she's actually meant to be in the bad place, but everybody thinks that she's good, so she has to lie her way into staying
And it's really
there.
difficult for her, isn't it?
It is. Oh, it's just so. And the characters, there are lots of.
It's the sound of my wife's phone in the background. Apologies for that.
There are just so many good characters, and it's so well put together. And the good thing as well is that they're only like 22 minutes long, so they're really nice and bite-sized. You know, you don't have to commit for too long, which I think is great. Although you do. You commit for far too long because you just let it roll into the next episode.
How many of them are there?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think I'm easily like 15 of them now. I've got through. And let's have a look.
It's Ted Danson, isn't it? As in it.
Yeah, that's right.
Of Cheers fame.
35 episodes so far.
Wow. They've done a lot.
They have done a lot, haven't they?
Are they just making it forever, just carrying on and on and on, or is that 2 series worth, or what?
There's 3 series now, and the funniest thing is, I thought, they can just wind this up like by the end of the first series. Like you could really easily make it like a 1-series wonder, but no, they've just kept it going, and quite rightfully so, because it is really fun.
Does the plot develop? I watched about 2 or 3 of them all in one go when it was first on Netflix, and really enjoyed them, but somehow just didn't. It's a bizarre thing with me, because even though comedy is a huge part of my life, you and I giggle a lot, and we say all sorts of daft things, but I'm not a huge watcher of comedy. Isn't it weird? I used to be. I don't know what that's about, but yes, I found it like too much. Interesting thing, before you tell me about any plot developments in it, I remember Georgia Tennant said to me that she was watching The Handmaid's Tale, and I said, "Oh, that's really dark." And she said, yeah, it's great, but it's dark. She said, "So I have to watch The Good Place as an antidote to it." So she was sort of balancing the two, one of them cheering her up after she'd been really knocked down by the other. Yeah, does the plot develop much? Because it seemed to be quite... Yeah, it was developing a lot when I was watching the first 3.
It does. It's one of those great ones where it's now got itself into the sort of routine of dropping huge clangers at the end of the episode, really. So suddenly in the closing title and the closing credits, you'll suddenly get something and you think, oh, I thought this is just... It has one of those things, you think you know where you are, and then it changes gear again, which I love when shows do that. So it's constantly chopping and changing. I mean, it's one of those things, you don't take it too seriously, but I think it's just fun. It's just for me. I just at the moment just really want a light-hearted thing to kind of. I don't want to go too crazy deep into something. So this is really nice, actually.
Nice.
It's a bit of a nice change. How about yourself? What have you been watching? It's where you say you've been watching The Good Place. It's all about fish. It's all about just lots of... Yeah, it's just quite a nice place here. Could do with some more salt.
I was going to say, the interesting thing about The Good Place is it's a bit like how there's been a trend in drama over not so recently, actually, but with Breaking Bad. And before that, a cop series, an American cop series, I can't remember what it's called, The Shield.
Oh, yeah.
Where the main character is who you're rooting for is not particularly pleasant,
Definitely.
but somehow charismatic. And in The Good Place, your main character is a woman who's essentially lying about everything, and then she tries to be nice, but just can't help being bitchy and horrible. And it makes you worry how much you're actually more like her than the good people.
It's so well.
Very clever, isn't it?
She says, "I'm not a bad person." She said, "I'm just a really middly person." Although I think she's a bad person, you see, but she's trying hard to better herself.
They have a sort of link up to The Bad Place, don't they? They occasionally play what's going on in The Bad Place. You just hear all this.
It's just screaming, just non-stop screaming and torture. I love it though. And, it's the best bit. They did this one thing where you go to the medium place. And they said, right. Yes, it's a sort of, we have to make an agreement between the good and the bad place as to what you have. So your favourite drink is beer, so you've got unlimited supplies of beer. However, the bad place has intervened on this, and the beer is always room temperature. As of course, it's like that. All the films you've got an extensive collection of films, but they're all really average films, and they're all on VHS. It's just I really like that. It's ever so.
Of course, we wouldn't mind the warm beer. Being English, you see, in America, a warm beer's anathema, isn't it? But here we don't mind a bit of warm beer.
Warm beer and VHS.
And I quite like a nice average film. I mean, I'm sure Chalet Girl is an average film.
That would definitely be in there. Definitely.
What have I been watching? I've been watching The Sandbaggers, which I keep trying to force you to buy. When was The Sandbaggers done? Goggle it. I don't know what. I'll get the young person to do the goggling.
78 to 80.
Yeah, see, I thought so. late on. With Roy Marsden playing a really miserable head of the Special Intelligence something or other. It's a really good series. And of course, continuing to watch Public Eye. Although I have to say, really annoying, Talking Pictures, because they keep sort of sliding from one series to the next on Public Eye. You set series record on your Freeview box, but every time they change series, it stops recording. And I thought it should be, you know what I mean? And they're only about 6 episodes each, so I keep finding that a load of them haven't recorded. I don't know why I'm recording them. I've got them on DVD anyway. I've lent the DVD to my mother-in-law.
I've got them on Series Link now, actually. Have to say.
Yeah, well, it will probably drop off because they keep ending a series and then, on a Tuesday start a new series and then it stops recording.
Oh no.
Yeah. Last night, because Benji and I, as you may have heard, I don't know, went to Chicago last weekend for Chicago TARDIS, big Doctor Who convention. I'm suffering from jet lag belatedly. I seemed to adjust quite nicely when I came back, and then last night I went to bed at about 9:30, slept for a couple of hours, and then was just completely awake. And so had to do so I did lots of work, lots of Big Finish work, but then I decided to watch one of the recent episodes of Doctor Who again, Kablam, which I have to say is my favourite so far, but I watched it with headphones because I didn't want to disturb my wife and son, and it was amazing. I mean, I enjoyed it even more than I enjoyed it the first time, and just to hear Segun Akinola's music, I could listen to that theme tune over and over again. His version of the Doctor Who theme is, I think, the best since the series came back in 2005 for me, which I was very proud to be able to tell Chris Chibnall that the other day. And because, as I keep mentioning to people, he lives in the same town as me, so I went round to his place for a cup of tea, just for a little chat about nothing in particular except Bakewell tarts and children's schools and stuff. It just blows your mind, that theme tune. But also, Segun's music never stops. There is not a moment in the programme where there is no music. And it's incredible the way he just sort of... It's a bit like the effect of that... I was talking to someone else about it recently, a bit like the effect of in Dunkirk, the
Shepherd tone.
The music in that just keeps going. What was that technique?
It's called the shepherd's tone. And so what it is you have two conflicting frequencies at the same time. So whilst one is going up, whilst the other is simultaneously going down, and this tricks the brain into believing that the music is constantly rising. Yeah. It's a really clever. I tried to do it.
I don't know whether he actually does that technique, but it's similar.
I mean, he's got a great thing, with this particular series of Doctor Who, is that the music feels like a living organism. It's very much it's very digital and it's very contemporary. So it's a refreshing change from orchestral stuff. Because
you get the occasional real sounding instrument coming through, though, don't you?
Oh, definitely. I think both types of score do different things in a way, and what this kind of does is I'm a big fan of music like this, where it's in the background and then comes into the foreground and then can easily blend back in. It's the same. I love
the sort of electric guitar thing he does as the Doctor's theme.
There's a great somebody did a cover of that on YouTube. Actually,
oh, really?
They really went for it.
Do send me a link.
I will do. But I mean, he deserves an award for his music, in my opinion. He's done really great stuff and deserves all the praise that he's already got from people.
I'd love to meet him one day. Hopefully one day I will.
Do the old magic handshake. Here's my card. Here's my card. No, but he's good. Hats off to him. It's the same with Bodyguard. The music in that had a similar sort of thing, where it was. Obviously, there were quiet bits, but the music was very much always going on. There was always something rippling in the background, and I like that.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, there you are. That's what we've been watching this week. We're going to do your emails now, but before we do that, we're going to do some Facebook comments that you made about our ITC special last week, and I asked people if they had any favourite ITC shows or memories. Laura Cleveland Leica said The Prisoner. It's one of the first sci-fi shows I watched, along with Star Trek and Time Tunnel. I was so happy to see it's on Amazon Prime. Started watching it, and it still resonates. I love it.
Peter Brailsford here says, now, this might be the right place to ask a question about the pre-series of The Prisoner, aka Danger Man. Or I really feel compelled there to say Dangerman, but I won't. I was actually in an episode. I was around 5 years old and played a young prince that got kidnapped. Now, it was filmed down in Brighton, and my mum used to get invites often to take me back down there. However, I have no idea what the episode name was or what number it was. If anybody knows the story can help, I would be most grateful.
Oh, I don't think anyone. Someone got back and sent a picture of a child in one episode, and he said, "No, a very young child." And he said, "No, I was older than that." So I don't think that's been resolved. If anyone can find out about that, that'd be good. And I said, "There's a challenge." Lovely story, Peter. Alex Pass, one of our favourite emailers, says, so much goodness. Don't forget all those TV movie re-releases we got in the 1980s. Invasion UFO and Destination Moonbase Alpha immediately sprung to mind. I watched A Space 1999 yesterday, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yes, what was it called? Something like The Voyager's Return or something. About a spaceship with a space drive that destroys everything in its path. I thought, what a natty invention.
Was it early or late 1999?
It's hard to tell. It's sort of mid in terms of the release schedule, but, like a lot of episodes, doesn't make any sense in terms of the progression of the stories.
Of course, yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we got one here from Mark A. Smith, who, before we read what is said, me and Nick both sort of had a comment on this to each other when we saw the photo. But it's a picture of Peter Davison in the 1980s in his Doctor Who gear with a beard, which totally looks completely out of place. Crazy. But the message here is any chance of getting Ian Ogilvy in a Big Finish audio. Now that is an interesting one, isn't it?
Well, he sounded great, didn't he, when we were at the ITC event, which, if you haven't heard that, listen back to the last episode of the Benji and Nick show. We didn't get to interview him, but he was interviewed on stage, and part of that is included in the podcast. I would love to. He spends most of his time in LA, so we'd have to be very careful to catch him. Wouldn't that be marvellous, though?
Would be awesome.
Great voice. Yeah. Barnaby Eaton-Jones, he says he recently narrated this is about Ian Ogilvy. He recently narrated a Robin of Sherwood, because Barnaby Eaton-Jones produces those under license from ITV, so I suspect he'd be up for it. He was brilliant. That's good to hear.
Well, Tom Hodden comments here, I always thought BNN, that's Benji and Nick, should enjoy an episode of The Persuaders, if only for the John Barry theme. I'll sit through anything with the John Barry theme, though, to be honest.
Have you ever seen the Avengers?
I've not seen the Persuaders. No.
I meant Persuaders. Sorry.
Have you ever seen the Avengers? Yes, I have. Yeah.
Have you seen the Magic Roundabout?
One of my favourites. Zebedee.
Yes. Oh, you must watch the Persuaders. We must do a Persuaders.
Is that a picture of us?
Where? Oh, it could be, couldn't it?
I think that's us.
Is that? Do they mean us?
Well, it looks like us, doesn't it? Look, it's got you. It's you on the left there with your beard, and me on the right with me beard and me hair and me little widow's peak going on. We've
got no eyes or noses or ears or anything.
It's amazing. I like that though. I really like that.
Crazy.
Wow.
Rob Perry says Space 1999, love, and I replied, yay. And don't call me love. No, I didn't say that.
We got one, Maria C. Antonio. Is it Antonio?
Well, I don't know how to pronounce that.
I don't know. I'm sorry if we haven't got it right. So do write in and tell us how it's meant to be pronounced. It says here, Mum and Dad had a chip shop, and I remember sneaking back downstairs when they were busy to watch The Prisoner. I am not a number. I am a free man. Loved it. Was way too young to be watching it though, and I loved Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. ... Thumbs up.
Oh, Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. We should do another episode of that at some point.
Definitely.
Andrew Wooding says Sunday afternoon repeats of Randall and Hopkirk Deceased on the black and white telly in Nan's house in Birmingham, cigarette smoke in the living room, and poodle fur on the sofa. Well, I was a bit worried what I was going to say then. Wishing it was the day before so I could watch Tis Was again. Tis Was on Saturday. Saturdays Tis Was, never a day to miss, cause Saturdays Tis Was day. You don't remember Tis Was, do you?
Too young. Too young.
Do you know of it?
I know of Tis Was, yeah, of course. Of course,
Chris Tarrant going crazy in the studio. Sylvester McCoy as well. Oh. The Phantom Flan Flinger.
It's a role very much made for him, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. So I said, so atmospheric, Andrew. Brilliant, is what I said there.
Phil Markham, maybe we can get an episode of either The Saint or Return of the Saint on a future episode. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. You replied,
I said,
didn't
must
you?
Do that, Philip. Oh. Yeah. There we go. Oh, I'll just have a quick look at if anyone said anything about Columbo, since we're going to be discussing it. And I think people have. Rich Wagner says, I know Troughton predates Columbo, but I always saw a similarity in the Second Doctor and the way Columbo investigated a crime. I agree with that completely. Yes, that sort of shambling around and people not taking him seriously. It turns out he sort of has got a fierce intellect. Also, I've seen all of the Columbo episodes. Tom Hodden, who features a lot in this podcast, says, I haven't, but Mrs. Columbo likes it.
Hey!
Christine Trowbridge says, one more thing, yes, smile, smile, smile. John Pendleton says, just a few of them: Identity Crisis, By Dawn's Early Night, Agenda for Murder, and Ashes to Ashes come to mind. I wonder why. I said, you know the titles. Stephen Ashby says, love Columbo, and one more thing. It's one of his catchphrases.
One more thing.
Not a cat phrase. I don't know what a cat phrase is. Meow. On the subject of cats, Martin Montague, our dear friend from Big Finish, does lots of brilliant sound design. And truly brilliant sound design. He said, one last thing. And I said, my wife thinks you're terrific. And Martin said, that's very kind of you to say, very kind of her to say so. Oh, I see what you mean. So there we have it. There's our little Columbo comments.
I love this week's cover as well. You get a free Dip Dab lollipop, Sherbet, which is just so good.
Sherbet Dip Dab, yep.
This is my okay. So cheers, Colin, for the cover as always. Absolutely superb.
We've talked about Thomas Hodden, who sends messages via the Facebook page, The Benji and Nick Show, which is rather good. Do you want to read out his email?
Certainly will. Good news, chaps.
It was sent at 7:38 in the morning, you know this.
Oh, early bird. Good news, chaps. The research and development boffins in the merchandising department are now testing their patent-pending rose-tinted viewing goggles. Wearing a pair will allow you to watch any video just as you misremember it. That Doctor Who episode becomes Doctor Who and the Big Welsh Maggots of Worms, starring John Noakes. Episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer are hilarious bloodbaths with breathtaking special effects again, and Babylon 5 is entertaining. Oh, ouch, ouch, ouch.
Wow, what a bitch.
There is a slight feedback loop that prevents you from watching Jeremy Brett as Sherlock Holmes, where Michael Caine keeps turning up, and your aunt will demand to know if this is the one with Jack the Ripper in it. On the other hand, Blake 7 is vastly improved by every episode ending with the entire crew being exterminated by the Daleks. Yes! The only slight concern is that since the devices were switched on, several entirely new films have warped into being, and my box set of Ealing comedy seems now to be 9 discs of The Lady Killers. Hopefully, we'll have this sorted by the Christmas rush. T.E. Hodden, sent from my iPhone. Oh, amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for that report.
Always delivers the goods.
We look forward to further updates. Now, a subject, this may not be the Columbo you were expecting. Sent on the 29th of November. at 5:26 in the morning from Adam Graham. Dear Nick and Benji, when I heard you were going to do Columbo, I was delighted as the 1970s version was one of the best detective shows ever made. When I heard you planned to do the first episode, I was afraid you'd end up slightly less delighted if you watched Prescription for Murder. I'm ahead of you here, mate. Prescription Murder was the first time Peter Falk played Columbo, but it's strikingly different. He looks far too respectable throughout the entire episode and is not as eccentric as he'd come to be in the 1970s. Sorry, my reading ability is impaired. I'm just on the aftermath of an ocular migraine, which means no pain but difficult to see things. In addition, that's a classy excuse for just being rubbish at reading out, isn't it? In addition, the episode was set in New York, whereas the rest of the series was set in New York. What? Maybe a mistake there, not in my reading. In addition, most, though not all, of the 1970s stories were 75 minutes long without commercials, whereas Prescription Murder was 90 minutes. In addition, Prescription Murder was an adaptation and expansion of a 1960 TV episode of the Chevy Mystery Show, which was later adapted to stage. I did know that there was a stage play. I mentioned about my conversation with Dick Fiddy last week, and I was talking about getting a stage play of Columbo to come to Britain. Prescription Murder isn't a bad play at all, in my opinion. You get that great psychological moment as the killer becomes increasingly desperate, and we see how Columbo tightens the screws to bring his man to justice. But to paraphrase Mr. Spock, it's Columbo, but not as we know it, Sir Nicholas. Actually, isn't it... Dr. McCoy who says it's not as we know it. Who knows? Shut up. Sorry. The proper beginning to Columbo would be in 1971 in Ransom for a Dead Man. Really? I haven't even got that on the box set. Oh, yes, I have. That's pilot 2. According to that. That's why we didn't go for that, because it was still a pilot episode. In that episode, we get nearly all of the tropes we love about Columbo, and the story is set in Los Angeles. That's what you meant to say earlier, rather than New York, I think. If you're fortunate, you watch that instead of Prescription Murder, and you've been reading me ramble about something you didn't even watch, thus wasting everyone's time. It's never a waste of time on this podcast, mate. Just in case I have wasted everyone's time, I will throw in one relevant piece of trivia to make up for it. Originally, the producers had a different person in mind to play Columbo's singer. Columbo, sorry, the hyphen made me think he was saying something different. To play Columbo - singer Bing Crosby. Yes, I did know that. Did you know that, Benji?
No, I didn't actually.
I'll also offer my all-time favourite episode of Columbo, A Stitch in Time from Season 2, starring Leonard Nimoy. Illogical. The shot of Nimoy's character about to commit the murder is terrifying, and the interplay between Falk and Nimoy is brilliant. From Adam Graham, author of All I Needed to Know I Learned from Columbo.
which is a book. You can get it on it on Amazon. Yeah, you can get it on there.
Well, I thought he was making that up.
No,
sorry,
it's
Adam.
actually a book.
Sent from a swank late 1960s penthouse apartment. Maybe swanky, we'd say. Do they say swank in America? Anyway, thank you very much for that. And so we've opted for episode 1, which is Murder by the Book, and not the second pilot, Ransom for a Dead Man. We should... Well, I might watch that later with my son. He keeps saying, can we watch some more Columbo?
Columbo is great. Why not?
He does love them.
So we've got another email here, the last of our email trilogy. Is it true? Have we done 3 or 4? I can't remember.
It's 3, mate. Yeah.
So the subject for this one is AHA! Sent on the 24th of the 11th, 2018 at 9:22 a.m. from John Pettigrew. Hi, Nick and Benji. I've got one for you. I'm not going to read it in Alan Partridge's voice. After several podcasts where you've given your critical appraisal of some of the more obscure, or at least stuff that I've never heard of, cult TV, where I've since tracked them down, like the Jensen Code, or Benji's copy of The Nightmare Man, and enjoyed, I now offer you something that I think may be suitable for a future podcast, but may have slipped by you. The Other Game, 1988, combines the high-risk business world with magic, danger and Arthurian tones. DVD is now direct from network for around £5. I'd love to hear your opinions on it, as I've bought it, but yet to enjoy. Best wishes and keep casting them pods, John Pettigrew.
Isn't
I'm
it
sure
the
that's
one
the one
game?
game. But we've done
Not
that
the
one.
other game, yeah.
I'll just double check that there isn't another thing. But
I think we've done the one
it's the
game.
one game. We've actually done the one game,
It's
John.
not the other. Yeah, go back and have a listen. Have a look on SoundCloud or nicholasbreaks.com and
Check it out.
iTunes and yes.
Absolutely, I love the one game. As Nick will know, I've got a lot of time for the one game. It sort of reignited my passion for Arthurian legend. Actually, at the moment,
I saw you were reading a book about Arthurian
indeed,
legend.
yeah. Well, I wanted to.
Not that I go through your luggage regularly, but
Well, it was on the side. No, I've been wanting to read. So I've got the original manuscripts. This is really boring, but I'm just going to say. So I've got the original Mallory manuscripts of King Arthur, which is kind of like the first one King Arthur became like an actual story, not just Geoffrey and Monmouth did like a fictional history of him, blah, blah, blah. But I've got this other book which is kind of sums up all of the famous legends of King Arthur and kind of puts it into one cohesive story. But yeah, I'm very intrigued by it. I wish to learn.
fascinating. Should we call Jamie Anderson?
Yes, why not?
Okay. It is connecting. Hello.
Hello.
Is that what it sounded like?
It did. I can't see you. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Welcome to the Benji and Nick show, Jamie Anderson.
Thank you for having me, Nick Briggs.
Does it keep doing that?
Yeah, it does. It's very nice to speak to you.
So, Benji, would you like to ask Jamie a question, and I can
Certainly,
communicate
yeah.
it to him?
Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Random question generator.
Are they in a bag or a sock or something?
What was the biggest thing that you've ever won?
Do you mean by volume or by level of importance?
I'm going to say answer both of those questions.
At a fun fair when I was 7, and my father took me on a ghost train that was so scary that I cried my eyes out for half an hour.
Oh.
He then took me to a thing where you hooked ducks out of a pond.
Oh, I love
and
that.
on the bottom of one of the ducks was, I can't remember what number, but a number that corresponded to a prize. And that prize was a 5-foot tall teddy bear. Wow. That I then took home and gave to Mother.
Oh.
And she kept that for many years until one of her dogs eviscerated it.
What was the teddy bear called?
I don't think it had a name, but it was
The
very
nameless
soft.
evisceration.
I'm sure that the contents, the stuffing, must have been highly flammable and or toxic.
Yeah. So how was the dog
The dog
afterwards?
survived the evisceration.
So that sounds pretty big emotionally and indeed in terms of its volume.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that answers both questions.
Did you have another answer in mind?
Oh, well, I was going to go for a boring sporting achievement, but that doesn't feel appropriate for the Benji and Nick show somehow.
No, you're absolutely right. I would have just pressed end call.
The other most important thing I've ever won is the opportunity to be regularly a guest on the Benji and Nick show.
Oh, wow. I'm genuinely bowled over by that sincere remark.
I'm very glad to hear that.
Anything interesting you want to tell us?
Well, I'm glad that you called me now, because if you'd called half an hour ago, I would have been at the feed merchant buying some layers pellets.
I don't know what that means. Is that some sort of animal? Animal
Layers
food?
pellets are pellets for the chickens that lay eggs, you see.
Right.
Oh, and despite the fact that we've got over 100 chickens here, I currently have to buy eggs at the supermarket.
What? Sack them.
I know! Yeah, suck or eviscerate them, one of the two.
Yeah, Benji wants to know what those chickens are doing.
I'm just having a holiday, really.
An egg holiday.
An egg holiday is the change in light, because they're what's the word?
Rubbish?
I can't remember. Phototropic or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, because the day length shortens, they stopped cycling and stopped laying. So
Benji said they should put their cameras down and start laying eggs.
I'll go and tell them that, Benji, from you.
Do you sell eggs?
What, are you in the market for some?
Yeah, if you could just put them in the post.
Well, we do send eggs in the post, you see, to people that hatch them.
Oh.
So, yeah. Anyway, this is, I mean, I've never sold any of the eggs for consumption. I've just given them away.
Right.
But I don't tend to bring them from Wales to London because they get broken en route.
Yeah.
I mean, this is truly the most fascinating conversation we've ever had.
Yeah, it is. Any media happenings in your life?
I don't know, really.
I met a very interesting friend of yours who had a beautifully loud voice.
Oh,
Yeah.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
said that he thought you were a thoroughly lovely chap.
and I bet about 50 people heard it when he said it as well.
Well, that's why he's known as the Quiet American.
Well, it's just that, Jamie said you'll really like him because we were in a bar in Soho. Sounds like our life is so seedy. And it's obviously quite noisy, and an old fart like me, I'm sitting at the bar constantly sort of cupping my hand around my ear to hear what Jamie's saying. And he said, you won't have any trouble like that with Andrew. And it's true. He arrived behind me and said something before I'd seen him. And it was like someone had brought out a loudspeaker. I mean, apart from the fact that he's a very nice chap, he's one of my favourite human beings already because he's so beautifully audible. It's fantastic.
That's a great review of Andrew. Beautifully audible.
Yes, if you could tell him that's what I think about
him. I will pass that on at once.
And it's so delightful to not have to keep saying pardon to people in noisy places. Anyway, that's one of the curses of getting old and having listened to Dalek voices your whole blooming life. Well, thank you, Jamie. Thanks for being with us on this rather rainy, dreary Saturday.
Yeah, great pleasure. What are you watching today?
Columbo.
Oh, Columbo.
Murder by the Book. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, because you told me some interesting facts about Columbo, which I didn't know. So I'm sure you and your listeners are about to have a fantastic time.
He's so on message. Thank you. Well, and don't forget, listeners, to listen out for me in the Jerry Anderson podcast. Is that what it's actually called?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
it does what it says on the tin.
It's good name. I remembered it without even trying because I'm interviewed by Jamie talking about Jerry Anderson and all sorts of other things that I probably shouldn't have mentioned.
You love the torpedoes in Stingray.
Oh, that's right. Missiles, as they called them.
Missiles, yeah.
Sting missiles.
Yeah, so that's pod, what is that? Pod 23, I think, if people want to look for that.
And apparently we're up to 40 now.
Episode 40?
Yeah, I know. How does that happen?
Congratulations.
Well, we only know this because Colin Smith, who does our covers beautifully, thank you so much, Colin, if you're listening. I assume you're listening somehow. But he puts the number on the little magazine cover things he does, which are fantastic. And I every now and again look at the number and think, really? Have we done 10 more? Anyway. All right, mate. Well, I'll let you go.
Keep up the good work.
Yes. What, to me or Colin?
Both. And Benji.
Cheerio.
Thanks for having me. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. And there he goes. I must explain there that Benji's microphone went down during that, so all my relaying of stuff was actually quite fortuitous.
It certainly was.
Yes, because you wouldn't have heard him. So it also means that we just lost our entire review of Columbo, which we're now going to have to do again.
But never mind.
So apologies if we sound a little bit like, and there's some happens and the stuff. Columbo. Murder by the Book.
Fantastic piece there. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. My initial feelings about Columbo is, again, it's something that's always been on. It's a bit like Dawson's Creek in the sense that it's just always on the TV. And so, but again, you know, I've seen bits of it, but I never sat down and sort of thought, I'm going to watch Columbo. So watching this was so refreshing and wonderful. It was a great piece of television. Me and Nick, I think, you know, now we know what we each other thinks of this. We both thoroughly enjoyed it, didn't we?
Yeah, 5 exclamation marks at the end.
Oh dear.
You know, when you feel you've expressed things really well.
We really did, yeah.
And then we have to say it all again. Yes, it's very good.
I'll tell you what, I've got an idea. So let's go through some bullet points here. So first then,
yes.
Plot/writing.
Yes.
So what were your initial thoughts on that?
You know, the thing to say about Columbo, the unique thing about it is that everyone who's ever watched it knows about, is that you know who the murderer is. The first 5 minutes, first 10 minutes are people, is the murderer perpetrating the crime. Then Columbo turns up, and the bizarre thing about him, especially in this episode and in many other episodes, is that he doesn't seem to be connected to the rest of the police force. There are episodes where you know what I mean? It's almost like a figment of either the witness or the murderer's imagination. A bit like an Inspector Calls. It's got that sort of J.B. Priestley feel about it. Sort of, but not quite. And it's all about, it really demonstrates how sometimes knowing what the ending's going to be doesn't matter, because if you've watched Columbo before, you absolutely know when you start watching it what the ending's going to be. You know that he is going to get the criminal, and you know there will be that key moment where there's the first little clue, like in this, when he notices that the murderer, who there's a writing partnership, and one writer decides to kill the other one when the other one decides to go it alone, and it's for the insurance money, as it turns out. The tragedy for the murderer is that the one he wants to murder is the one who does the writing. The murderer actually isn't very talented and is just the front man and does all the PR and stuff, and loves the champagne lifestyle.
I think what is glorious about Columbo as a character is that he's sort of like a bumbling, sort of ambling, not an idiot, but he plays the fool, and he plays the fool really well. And he's sort of buzzing around the murderer, and constantly, you know, oh yeah, you know, so how are you today? You know, what are you doing? Oh, just one more thing, and then he drops a clanger at the end, which is just wonderful. I mean, hats off in this particular episode to the murderer himself. I never thought I'd say that. Is Jack Cassidy, Ken Franklin, who plays this wonderfully sort of insincere criminal, doesn't he? He's completely not fazed by the fact that he's killing people. You know, I mean, it's that classic thing, as you were saying.
Well, killing one person. It's the
kills
thing
two,
is that,
but at the start,
two.
one. Yeah.
That's true. Yes, he kills one to cover up for the second one. It's the old adage about. I'm sorry about all the noise in the background. My wife's sort of ferreting around and putting things in the bin, and you know, it's very efficient, I think. Yeah,
very efficient. Very efficient.
The business of hubris, where someone is overconfident, and hubris leads to nemesis, which is, you know, the destruction. He thinks he can get away with this, and that's what it always is with Columbo. Someone who's overprivileged and overconfident, thinking that they can solve whatever petty problem they have. You know, I think it's fair to say that in any Columbo mystery, and certainly in this one, we don't have any sympathy with the killer. We just slightly get tense as the noose sort of closes around their neck. We don't ever think, oh God, I could see myself in a situation where I might think, yes, that person was horrible, so they had to die or whatever. It's always for some petty, privileged reason that the crime is committed.
Well, you're watching him as well to see just how deep he can go, just how deep he can dig. And think that he gets away with it, and that's the thing. He really believes he's tying up all the loose ends, and that he'll be able to walk free from this one. But gradually, as it goes on, it becomes more and more difficult. But yet he doesn't I don't think the killer's aware of that. I mean, there's that wonderful sequence in this one where the killer, Ken, takes on a blackmailer, Lily, who's this woman who knows very well that the murder didn't take place in the office. And she demands to her what is a huge amount of money, which is actually to him nothing at all.
$15,000.
But and there's sort of this wonderful thing, because it was a bit of a double bluff, because they're having dinner and he's trying to basically, he's going to bump her off, and she sort of knows that he's a bit of a bad egg, and so she's kind of saying, I don't know if I can trust a man like you. He tries to get her out to the middle of the lake, and she says, don't think I can be alone with a man like you in the lake. And it's all so which he then conks her over the head with a bottle of champagne and dumps her in the river. But it's just so wonderfully put together.
Yeah, what about the Spielberg factor? Because you initially thought that it didn't feel very Spielbergian to you. But
yeah, I watched like the first, I think, 18 minutes, and I know that because I wrote it down on a bits of paper where to carry on from. But then as it went on, I could see more and more that there were the elements of Spielberg that were in there. I mean, like all that stuff on the lake was so Spielberg in there. And it's just beautiful, isn't it, really?
I like the way that he, when he was... filming an interior, but it was done on location, so he was actually in a real apartment overlooking a city. He started with a panoramic shot of the city and then pulled back into the room. He made use of it in a way that another TV director might not have thought to do. They might have just spent all their time just setting up the shot and getting on with it.
Well, it feels very swish, doesn't it? The whole thing, it's all very well put together, a well-crafted bit of telly. Feels expensive. And I think Spielberg really helps to add to that. And as well as that, I love the music in this. Something like using a typewriter to which becomes almost a percussive instrument.
That's right. You said it reminded you of what happened in Atonement.
Yes, which is a great film. I love Atonement.
A controversial film, actually. A lot of people really hate it.
Oh, I don't know. I like it.
I really liked it.
I thought it's very.
But yes, that has cool typewriter rhythm in the music, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it works really well with Columbo. I mean, the theme actually in this, the music in this is great. Actually, it's really, really good. There
was never any particular theme tune for Columbo. Certainly in the UK, the Columbo films were sort of part of a sequence called mystery movies, they call them. I don't know whether they were actually made under that title, where you have Macmillan and Wife and also Banachek. Macmillan and Wife starred Rock Hudson.
Right.
And Banachek starred George Peppard. And they were sort of made in a similar style, but neither of those were as eccentric as it. There was also another one. Oh, goodness, I can't remember his name now. Played by... He was like a cowboy who used to ride through the streets of LA. Oh, I wish I could remember his name. Not ringing any bells with you, presumably.
No. The only thing that came to my mind was Midnight Cowboy, but that's a film.
Oh, if anyone knows what I'm talking about, please do write in. I'm just going to click a link here, see if that says anything. It's murder, mystery, suspense. Oh, no, I can't. No, can't find it. Never mind. McLeod! Got it!
Well done. That's the old ticker working there, Nick.
There we are. Yes, McLeod. He doesn't say anything about him. McLeod. I'm going to write in McLeod into the interweb. Oh, I really want to say yes, here. American police television drama. Starred Dennis Weaver.
Cool. That is cool.
Ran for 7 years. Yeah. Yeah, used to. Incredible.
Oh, I recognise. Yep, I recognise this. As soon as I saw the costume and the hat. Yep.
Anyway, we're giving this 5 exclamation marks, aren't we?
Definitely 5 out of 5. Yeah, it's brilliant. And unfortunately, yeah, our original review of this was really good. It was really we went into absolute minute detail. But I think we're a little bit frazzled because we're both still a bit jet lagged as well. So having to do this again is sort of a bit crazy for us.
I mean, I will have seen whether I can edit in any of the stuff that I previously said that exists. But
good idea. Yeah, if you can do it, do it. But yeah,
just created an enormous editing job for me.
But dreadfully sorry though for the problem. I blame Skype because Skype did say
let us down. Skype,
ruddy Skype. Now we have actually already chosen something for next week, which is the TV movie of London's Burning, which, as most people know, I'm a huge fan of. I love that series. Very much obsessed.
Unhealthily. By Jack Rosenthal.
It certainly is, and I particularly like this TV movie because it tackles some really good, loads of issues. I mean, it's like somebody's handed in the book and said, right, just go through this and tackle them. It's really good. I mean, the thing that I love about London's Burning is it's got great characters in it. And the characters, right from this, it's only a TV movie by this point. But the characters already feel really fleshed out, and of course it then lives on to a series which lasted until 2002 and got progressively better until then suddenly got progressively worse. It sort of peaked around series 7 and 8
a bit soapy,
and then became soapy, and it became less about the fires, and then I think at one point fires started becoming CGI, and it was really dreadful.
In those days it would have been awful.
Yeah, it wasn't great, to be honest, but certainly for a long time it was huge. It was a Sunday night thing. It was huge in the UK. And
I don't know, I bet I'll remember it as I'm watching it. I bet I'll start to remember it because I know it was a very popular, famous thing, and I remember it starting. So yeah,
I think it's the type of thing that you'll watch it, and I think you'll be compelled to watch on. I just feel like it. But also it's got lots of great music on the Yamaha DX7, which is just glorious.
Bada boom.
Bada boom. So yes, a strange end to this podcast, a bit like Groundhog Day, but now we'll assume we'll assume the position.
Yes, well, thanks very much. I'm going to look forward to a bit of London's Burning.
Oh yes, well, from me it's goodbye.
Oh, and from me, it's goodbye too. And don't forget to email us at podcast@nicholasbriggs.com, or you can send a message. What's the Facebook address?
The Facebook is www.facebook.com/The Benji and Nick Show. And do message us some questions for Jamie as well.
Oh, yeah, we want, What else can we ask Jamie Anderson? Because he can tell us stuff about his dad's classic series as well.
Yes. Mayhap. Well, bird of night, hoot not. I must depart. Goodbye.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk. Oh, I didn't record that time. I'm joking.